Okay, thank you again. Now, this is the third part of the session. We're going to see what are lightning components. Forward-looking statement. I'm going to skip this for now. Okay, so before going into what this lightning component is all about, first we need to understand what is a component. And we all know that how computer evolved into a powerful consumer machine, which we are using right now. But all these, one second. Okay, yeah. So, and we are correct. We all know, right, how computer evolved into a powerful computing machine that we are currently using now. And but if you go back like in the early 2000s, most of the work done most of the work that is done on the website is it's mostly on the server side. So in the early 2000s, if you are using a computer and if you're trying to access IE or any browser like Firefox, if you can see right, it as far as the presentation goes, it will be very simple. But behind the scene, the content provider has a lot of servers that does a lot of processing in order to like render the result onto the web. And since the majority of the work that was done on the server, and to solve most of the problems like huge code base and maintenance, people started using design patterns to solve all their server side problems and application maintenance. But the most important problem, what was fundamentally there, is on the UI, uh, things like code reuse and code maintenance was very little. And that's went on for a while. And when web adoption became popular, the fundamental problems of code maintenance, or because at the end of the day, as a web developer, when you are in 2006 or 2007, if you want a piece of functionality across multiple pages, what generally would people would do is they'll copy paste it everywhere instead of it being in a single place which can be referred across multiple places. There weren't any sort of a pattern there as far as web development is concerned. But as far as server side applications are concerned, like Java, JSP, they had like sophisticated mechanisms to share data as well as maintain code. And that is when like tech companies and the web community, they came up with libraries like jQuery and framework like AngularJS to solve the fundamental problems in building web applications. And fast forward, what really happened is it was good for some time, and that's when people realized like they need more intuitive solution to to handle the functionalities in the web. And that's when the concept of components came into picture. And the components are nothing but reusable UI components in the web, which can be utilized across multiple pages. So it is like using a video tag in your page, and the same video tag can be also used in another page. And based on the value that you pass to the video tag, it behaves differently in a page. So that is fundamentally what a component is. And companies like Angular and React and Facebook, they started leveraging the concept of components and started creating frameworks to solve modern UI problems. And what fundamentally what happened is developers like web developers or JavaScript developers, they started leveraging the components approach to promote reusability. And also they like break their application into smaller parts so that the code base becomes manageable as well as the features becomes manageable. Because if you are going to take a feature away, it is like removing the component, that's it. So no dependencies will be there, because most of the components, they interact loosely with one another. And in the same line, Salesforce did recognize the problem in the meanwhile, when they were like trying to introduce a new a development framework in Salesforce ecosystem. And that's when um, the component based approach was that is something that was commonly talked about in the web community. And Salesforce also leveraged, they used the same approach, component based approach, in order to develop an application framework in Salesforce that is which is called Lightning component. So Lightning component, at the end of the day, it is a UI framework, to develop dynamic applications. So when you say dynamic, and it is quite familiar that we are going to use JavaScript, because in order for a web application to be dynamic, you need the help of a JavaScript, and it can also work with mobile and desktop devices. Yes, of course, through your mobile you can definitely see a website, right? So that's pretty common. And also, if you look at the applications that are being developed, they use single page application, which I'll talk in a minute. And also, in addition to that, Lightning component uses JavaScript as a front end layer, and behind the scene, in order to like get the data, Lightning component uses Apex. Okay, this is the normal architecture of an application. So you saw how the Visual Force page operates, right? Visual Force uses traditional architecture where every time when you hit a URL, the browser, which is the client, would send a request to a server, and in return it would send a raw HTML file which has to be translated by the web browser, and it will be presented in the screen. And whenever you click on a button, everything will be sent as an HTML post, and then the resulting result would be returned as an HTML. And that really requires the whole page to be reloaded again. But in single page applications, so every unit that you see, or every little UI you see on your web application, are like separate components, which is capable of communicating with the server independently without the whole page to be reloaded again. So the initial request, when it goes to the server, it provides all the details that is really necessary for that particular UI to get loaded. And what happens is, behind the scene, each component would invoke would contact the server through AJAX request, and all the data transportation mechanism, they use JSON as a mode of transport to get back the data as well as send the data back to the server. So if a particular UI or particular piece of code, UI that needs to be changed, and you don't need the whole page to refresh again, the whole piece, that particular piece can like contact the server, and it can return back and it can refresh its own UI. So components are the future, because I've told you, right? Polymer is one of the famous framework by Google to develop component-based web application, and Angular is also a full-blown web application framework. And React, even though it's a library, it also promotes component-based architecture. And the same line, we also have Lightning component, which you can use to develop a modern UI inside Salesforce, which also uses component-based architecture. One second. Okay. Okay, and this is how when you create a Lightning component, it contains a lot of files. So it contains component, controller, helper, and style, and documentation, renderer, and so on. And the component is the place where you enter your UI markup. If you want to add a div tag or paragraph tag or even a video tag, you have to add all your HTML markup on the component file. And on the controller is where you handle your events. Say for example, you have added a button, you have a form with three input boxes, and upon clicking on a button called save, you need to access all the data that you have entered on the form. So through JavaScript controller, you can access all the data that is entered in the UI. And if you have any reusable logic that can be invoked from your controller, you can use helper. And the main reason why we have helper is because a controller method cannot call another controller method. So you need the help of an helper to call a logic that can be used in multiple places. And it has its own CSS file. So the main reason why it is mentioned as encapsulated CSS file is because all the style that you add to your component cannot it cannot interfere with the component that is there in the UI, right? So whatever you develop or whatever you include in the CSS file will stay within the component itself. So it won't affect your global CSS configuration. And design attribute, you can like expose global variables which can which can define the behavior of your component. I'll show it in the demo how you can like add design attributes or in your component. And in your CSS file, this let us say this is the markup that I have, and on your CSS file, if you're creating for your component, this is how it should start. So it should always, your CSS markup should always start with dot this, and you should add the element that you're targeting, and the appropriate style can be included within the braces. So this is how it is. Okay. So let us say, for example, if you're targeting a style that needs to be included for all the UI in your component, then if I had this line and if I set background color to yellow, then this particular information, when it gets displayed on the UI, you can see that the UL portion will be in yellow in color. Okay. The same way you can specifically target for element using the CSS conventions. And when we talk about component, we need a place where we need to store data, right? So user has entered the data on the UI, but you need to access the data, right? I mean, that's where component comes in. Imagine attributes are like, a member. Say, for example, a component is a class, and a class can contain variables as well as methods. And similarly, a component is a class. Similarly, like in members, okay, sorry, one second. Okay. An attribute is there's a place where you store all the data, and all the data, and like in class, every time when you create an instance of a class, and if you need to maintain a property, or if you need to maintain a data, you would expose a member variable like a string point or string first name, string last name. Similarly, if you want to maintain a data on your component, you need to expose an attribute and maintain the data over there. And we have a feature called data embedding. So every time when you enter a data on the UI, it can be like, it can sync with the data that is there in the attribute. So we have something called two-way binding, where every time, say for example, if I enter, if on the UI input number, it is a lightning component tag which would accept only numbers. And if I type in 1 2 3, automatically what the framework would do is it would bind the value to v.price, the actual attribute over here. And actions, I told you, right? On the controller, we can like listen for user events. Say for example, if you click on a button, if you really want to like access the value of the button, value that got entered, you can access it in the controller. Say for example, I have a very attribute called counter, and its type is number, and the default value is 0. And if I click on a button called click me, what would happen is it would invoke a method called handle click. And over here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get the value of the counter, which is by default is 0. So over here, I'm incrementing 0 plus 1, and I'm setting the counter back again. So what happens is, due to data binding property, whatever value you set in a controller gets reflected back on your UI. Accessing server data. I mean, it's really important that you bring all your, say for example, there are requirements where you have to build your own list views, or you have to build your own forms, like where the user can interact with. So in one of the demos, you saw how Yashwant was able to query the account record through an extension controller and show it on the UI. The same way we can also do it in Lightning component, where in order to like store the values that we get from the server, you need to expose an attribute called name equal to account. And since we are dealing with the collection of type account, the type is account, and this is the collection identifier. And we have handlers called init handlers. See, imagine init handlers are a control are for each class we have a controller, right, which gets executed every time when you create an instance of your class. Similarly, on your component we have something called init handler, which gets called every time a component gets created. So if you look at the line over here, we have called init handler name equal value equal to this, and we have an action which defines what method we have to call. So over here we are calling doInit method, and what happens is we on the Apex controller, we have a method called find all, and we are creating an instance of the find all method in the JavaScript code, and we are attaching a callback method called function of a, which gets executed as soon as the server request is done. And in addition to that, we have a line called $a.enqueue action. The main reason why we have $a.enqueue action is because the way Salesforce process all the server requests, they queue them into a container, and they would process them one by one. So in order to like add your request to your queue, you have to call your method. And as soon as when the result, when a Lightning component is able to retrieve the result, a function gets called. The whatever function that you pass as the callback, it gets called. And we have few properties called in a component dot is valid and a dot. And if you see here on the function, we have a variable called a. It can be anything else. So if the request was successful through get state, you can see if what's the state of the request. So it can be successful, it can be failure, it can be aborted. So if the request was successful, you will get successful. And in order to get the actual data from the server that is returned, you can get it through a dot get return value, and you can assign it back to accounts, which I'll show you in the demo. Component communication. Um, Now that let us say you're building a large application, and you're componentizing your small features into components. Sometimes your component needs to talk to one another, so it's really important, right? And in order to facilitate that, Lightning component has its own event driven communication system in place. And there are like two type of events in place. One is application event, the other one is component event. And this is how in order to like create an event, you have to like you create a component, you have to separately create an event definition which has its own type. If it is an application event, then you will give it as application. But if it is a component event, then instead of application, you will like give it as component. And also not only that, event also can you know carry information as well. So in order to like carry information, I told you like in order to like hold information inside a component, you need the help of an attribute. The same way, for an event to hold the attribute of to hold the data, you need an or attribute. So you can use an or attribute of any type over here. Component event usually works in the containment hierarchy, which I'll show it now. So let us say I have a parent component or a child component, and a component that is creating the event should have a register event tag. Okay, and it should fire the event, and the parent that sits on top of it, the receiver, will need to have an handler, so that every time when you fire an event, all the handlers that listen for this event can handle the information. But in the case of an application event, any event that has the name of the handler can handle it. So it does not respect the component hierarchy, which I'll show it in a demo. So imagine this. Okay, so let's jump into the demo. So what I did is we have two data model, like I said in the flow presentation. We have trips and we have vehicles. What I did is through Lightning component, I have developed a code that would query all the trips and it would list in this card format. And also I have, you know, enabled option to edit a trip information. So if I click on a trip, I can edit all the details I want. And if I click on save, the record gets updated. So let me like dive into the code. Before that, let me show you a simple example of how data binding works. So data binding is one of the features that is available in Salesforce that would help you to directly bind the values that you enter in your UI with the actual value that is maintained at the attribute level. So if I give hello world, because of the data binding feature, whatever I enter on this input box, it's binded to actual attribute which is displayed, whose value is also displayed here. So if you see here on my component, I have an attribute called greeting of type text, and I have an input box of type text and value equal to v.greeting. I'm binding the R attribute to this value attribute, and I've also given the label for the input box. So if I see if it's greeting, so that it is greeting over here. And if I set even I can set a default value here over here. So let me set hello world at the very beginning, and we'll not change it after it loads. So by default, the value of greeting is hello world, which gets binded over here, even on the markup itself. So if I change it to 1, 2, 3, see how powerful Aura is. Every time on every keystroke, what happens is Aura listens for the keystroke event for that happens on the input box, and it directly binds to the attribute that is tied to this input box. Okay. Now let us go back to the trip manager. So trip manager, initially what it does is it shows you a list of trips, and this is the component that queries the list of trip and displays it on the UI. So let us look at the component. So like I told you, in order to like generate a list of trips over here, I need to hold the value, right, in memory. So I have an attribute called trips of type list, and the default value is empty. And also told you, like on class we have controller, right? Sorry, a constructor. And similarly, for component we have doInit handler, which gets called every time the component gets loaded. So when the trip list component is created, what happens is Aura would call a method called doInit. On the doInit, we are creating an instance of a method called getAllTrip, which belongs to this controller. So let me open up the controller and show you. On the controller, I have a simple method called get all trips, which queries all the trips and return a list of trips as a collection input. Okay. Now that I've created the instance of the method that I'm going to invoke, I'm attaching a callback which gets invoked as soon as the request is completed. And I'm adding the action to the queue so that the Salesforce can process my request. As soon as the request is processed, you can see this function gets called. So what I'll do is I'll add an alert. Got result from server. See, got result from server. You can see the alert, right? So Salesforce is calling the callback, which means, okay, the request has been completed and we need to check the status of the request as well. So without any problem, we are able to receive the data. And now that we got the data, we have to get the data, the actual data that is that is contained on this variable. So you can access the data from through get return value method. So which would return the collection of trips that is returned by the server, right? And what I'm trying to do here is I have an iteration tag similar to for loop. We do have tags like iteration, which would help us to iterate over a collection and print the result accordingly. So if you can see, I'm able to iterate over trip. I'm storing it in a temporary variable called trip, and displaying the value of type, seats, and even the vehicle associated with the trip. That gets displayed over here. Okay, now I'm able to see the list view. Now I have to edit the list. Now let us see what happens when I click on edit. I can see a form which has few fields, right? So we'll see over here what happens when I click on the edit button. So if you can see here on the actions, I have an edit button, right? Edit trip. So when I click on edit, on click gets fired, and the edit trip, which is on the controller, gets called. And I'm creating an event. I told you trip manager is the main component, and it contains two child components, trip view and trip list. Since they are in an hierarchy, I can use component event to communicate trip list to the trip manager. So over here, what I'm doing is, in order to create an event, first I have to create the event definition. So in order to create an event definition, you can go to file, new, lightning event. You can give trip event name or trip action. This is how you create an event. By default, the type is application. And if you want to change it to component event, you can change it. And if the event, if you need the event to carry any payload information to its parent component, then you can give name equal to event, type equal to string. Now for me, in order to make this edit work, I need the ID of the trip, right? So what I'm doing is, on the trip list, I have already created an event. So I'll show you the structure of the event. It contains the event name and payload information, which is an object. So what I'm doing is I'm passing the whole trip to the trip manager, who is the parent of the trip list. So over here, I have this line component.get event of edit trip. Every event should have its own name. So that is how the handler, who's the parent, can identify if it is being called or not. And I'm adding the payload or information over here. So event name is edit, and payload is the trip that got clicked, and event.fire. This method is really compulsory. If you comment out this method, the event will not fire. Now the event is fired. And what happens is I have an handler for the same event, and what happens is switch action, the switch view, which is tied to the action attribute, gets called. And if it is edit, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, now that I've sent the event, I've handled it here, I need to extract the payload information, right? So what I can do is through get.event param, I can get the whole trip information. And all I need is the ID of the trip so that I can display this form. So if the event is edit, all I need is trip.id. I'm setting it to the trip ID. And as soon as the trip ID is set, I have an expression here that, if it is true, then this whole view, the trip list, will be hidden from the UI. I mean, that's what is happening over here. If I click on edit, the whole trip list view is getting hidden, right? So the expressions behind the scene gets evaluated every time when an attribute referred in the expression is changed. So over here, I'm setting the value of trip ID. If it is true, then we are adding SLDS hide, which in turn hides the whole DOM. And we have another attribute called aura-if, and only if it is true, the trip view will be shown in the UI. So since we are setting the trip ID, the trip view component gets displayed. I'm passing um, the trip ID to the trip view. Now let us look at how the trip view is configured. Now if you see here, I'm passing the trip ID, and I'm using a native component that is provided by Salesforce in order to build an UI. So all I need to do is I need to pass the object name and ID of the record, and also I need to specify the fields that I wanted to display. So automatically, what Salesforce would do is it would query with, see, if you see here, I don't have a controller over here, and I didn't even pass the whole trip object here itself. So all I'm trying to do here is pass an ID so that I can inform the record edit form, which is a native component, a standard component that is provided by Salesforce, which it would instruct based on the ID. It would query all these fields: trip, vehicle, seat, without writing a single line of Apex code. What Salesforce can do is, through its own data service, based on the ID that is passed and the object name that is given, it can query all the fields that is specified here and render them like this. And even in order to save the values, see, in order to save the values, what I'm trying to do here is, all I have to do is type equal to submit and label equal to save. I'm just creating a normal button, and the type of the button is submit. That is all is enough for the component to listen for an event called type submit, and save the record. That's pretty much it what we have to do. And as soon as the record got saved, we have to really inform the list, right? The list, so that it can refresh that particular record. So as soon as the button gets clicked, Salesforce internally recognizes, okay, this is a submit action, and it would save the records. And once the record commit is successful, we have an handler called handle success, which gets called. So upon success, a method on the controller gets called. So handle success over here. What I'm trying to do is I'm passing the whole payload information, the whole trip information that is required over here. I'm constructing the trip information, and again I'm using component event equal to submit, and I'm sending the whole trip as the payload. So due to component hierarchy, we know that on the trip manager is the parent of the trip view. So trip event, if you see here, the name of the event is trip event. This gets handled, and we are again calling the switch view. And if the event name is submit, what I'm doing is I'm emptying the value of the trip ID. So as a result, what happens is the trip view gets hidden and the trip list gets shown again, because the expression is evaluates to false. As a result, we are applying SLDS show class, which eventually shows the whole the whole list view back in the UI. And in addition to that, we have also exposed a method on the component. So if you look at, if you compare a component with a class, it has member variables and member functions. So attributes, they act as member variable, and similarly we can expose a function on a component. So what I'm trying to do here is I have to update the trip back, right? So I have exposed a method called update trip, and I'm passing the updated trip information. Now, if you see here, what I'm finding, component.find of trip, I have an ID over here, or ID equal to trips. I'm finding the component. So component.find, what it returns is it returns the instance of the component that is in memory, and through that I can access the properties of the component as well as the method of the component. Over here, I'm directly accessing the method. So I'm calling the update trip. On the list view, I have a method called update trip, which calls the update trip again on the controller, and so this method gets called, and behind the scene what happens is I'm trying to find out which ID got updated. I'm replacing the instance of the payload with the existing item in the list, and setting the trip back, trip list, the updated trip list back. As a result, whatever changes that I did gets reflected on the UI. Right. So if I go and edit type to round trip, and if I change the C to 51, save, that type, the value of type got changed and the value of seed got changed. So this is the place where we are actually updating the core list, that updates, that shows up the whole trip list in the UI. So this is how powerful the Lightning component is. And you saw, like, using Apex, we are able to get the result from the server, and even without writing a single line of code on the Apex controller, we are able to create. We are able to update record. Even we can even create a record if you don't pass an trip ID. If you click on submit, what Salesforce would do is it would create a record instead of like updating the record, and it would return the result back. Even that is also possible. So Salesforce has provide us a mix of options where, as a developer, you can really use in order to build complex applications in Infos.com. Coming back, I hope the session was really informational, and thank you. Over to you.